Apple is carrying a problem into the iPhone 18 Pro, the same problem that broke trust with iPhone 17 Pro owners. And nobody buying this phone in September is going to hear about it in the Apple Store. I've been going through every confirmed leak, every supply chain report, every credible source that got the iPhone 17 Pro timeline right, and I landed somewhere different from where most coverage landed. Not on the display, not on the chip, on something quieter, something Apple is hoping gets buried under the excitement of launch week. There is one specific thing about this phone that changes the answer for a very particular group of people, and that group is bigger than you think. We will get to it, but let me show you the full picture first, because this phone gets a lot right, and you deserve to know both sides before September. So here is what we are working with. The iPhone 18 Pro is confirmed for September 2026. Forbes locked that window down. The supply chain is set. The production units are being built right now. This is not a rumor cycle anymore. This is a phone that exists and is coming. What I want to give you today is something more useful than a spec rundown. I want to give you a real answer, the kind of answer your most informed friend would give you if you called them and said, should I buy this thing? Because that answer depends entirely on which iPhone you are holding right now. And by the end of this, you will know exactly where you stand. Let us start with the display, because the display is the story nobody is telling loudly enough. The iPhone 18 Pro is expected to push past 2000 nits of peak brightness in everyday use, not burst brightness, not the number they measure for half a second in a lab. Everyday sustained 2000 nits. For context, the iPhone 16 Pro peaked around 1600 nits in real conditions. The 17 Pro pushed that further. The 18 Pro is in a different conversation entirely. What that means in real life is simple. You are standing outside, full sun, you need to read something on your screen, and you just read it. No squinting, no tilting the phone at that specific angle where the reflection disappears for exactly 1 second. No doing the thing where you cup your hand over the screen like you are trying to block out a solar eclipse. You just read it. That sounds small. It is not small. It is the kind of improvement that changes how you use a device every single day without you even noticing, until you pick up someone else's phone and wonder why their screen looks like it is turned off. Apple is also keeping the titanium frame, which is the right call. The titanium frame that came in on the 16 Pro changed how a flagship phone feels in your hand. Not heavier, not lighter, just more considered, like the thing was built by people who actually thought about what your hand would be doing with it for 3 years. The 18 Pro refines that frame, thinner bezels, tighter tolerances, the kind of hardware refinement that does not show up in a spec sheet, but shows up every time you pick the phone up off a table. Now the chip, the A19 Pro, and I am going to ask you to set aside everything you think you know about chip announcements, because they have trained us to react to benchmark numbers the way we react to fireworks. Loud, impressive for a moment, and then completely irrelevant to your actual life. The A19 Pro is not interesting because it is faster. It is interesting because of what faster unlocks this time. Apple Intelligence, the suite of AI features Apple announced with real ambition and delivered with real inconsistency on the 16 and 17, finally has the hardware underneath it that it was always supposed to have. The neural engine in the A19 Pro has enough headroom to run on-device AI processing in real time without touching your battery in any meaningful way. What that means practically, writing tools that respond before you finish thinking, photo cleanup that happens the moment you tap, not 3 seconds after, call summaries, message drafts, on-device translation, all of it running locally, privately, instantly. The A19 Pro is not a chip upgrade. It is the moment Apple Intelligence stops being a feature you turn off because it feels slow, and starts being a feature you would miss if it was gone. That is a real shift, and it is one that matters more over 3 years of ownership than any benchmark number ever will. camera, this is always the section, the one that moves people from considering to buying. So let me be precise. The main sensor is staying at 48 megapixels. I know, I already hear it. But here's the thing about megapixels. We stopped living in a world where that number means what people think it means about 5 generations ago. The sensor is not the camera. The sensor is one ingredient. The camera is the sensor plus the lens, plus the processing pipeline, plus the chip making, 10,000 micro decisions in the fraction of a second between when you press the button and when the image is written to your camera roll. And on that pipeline, the 18 Pro makes a real leap. The telephoto system is where it happens. The iPhone 17 Pro had a specific problem at 5 times zoom in low light, a softness, a kind of digital uncertainty in the image where fine detail would just dissolve. You could see it on hair, on fabric, on anything with texture that you were trying to capture from across a room. The A19 Pro's image processing pipeline, combined with what appears to be a hardware adjustment to the telephoto module, addresses that directly. Early reports suggest the low-light telephoto on the 18 Pro is not an incremental improvement over the 17 Pro. It is a different result. Sharper, more confident in the detail, less dependent on computational guessing to fill in what the lens could not physically resolve. If that holds in final production, and the evidence says it will, then the iPhone 18 Pro becomes the first iPhone where I would say the telephoto camera is not just the best iPhone camera, it is competitive with the best camera on any phone at any price. That is not a sentence I type lightly. Now, here's the part I have been building toward since the beginning. PhoneArena reported something that deserves to be the headline of every iPhone 18 Pro video being made right now, and it is not. Apple is carrying a design issue from the iPhone 17 Pro line directly into the iPhone 18 Pro. The precise nature of that issue, the exact component, the exact failure mode is still being characterized at the supply chain level. But the pattern is documented. Apple became aware of a known issue during the 17 Pro production cycle. They did not solve it before the 18 Pro went into mass production. They managed it. I want to be careful with my words here because the distinction matters. Managing an issue is not the same as ignoring it. Apple has not shipped a phone and pretended the problem does not exist. But managing is also not the same as fixing. And a managed issue at the manufacturing level is a calculation, the calculation a company makes when the cost of the engineering solution exceeds what the customer complaint volume justifies. Read that again. The cost of fixing it in time, in resources, in redesign fee was weighed against how loudly customers complained and the fix lost. Now, here is why that matters to you specifically. You are not buying this phone for 1 year. Nobody buys a $1,200 phone planning to use it for 12 months. You are buying it for 2 years minimum, probably 3, maybe 4, if you are someone who runs a device until the battery is basically decorative. A managed issue in year 1 has a documented history of becoming a real issue in year 2, and a real issue in year 2 becomes a frustration in year 3 that no software update can fix. This is the information I would want my closest friend to have before they walked into an Apple store with their credit card. So I am giving it to you now. Pricing is expected to land close to the 17 Pro's launch price. Forbes has September locked as the release window. Pre-orders will open fast, probably within 48 hours of the announcement event. If you are planning to order at launch, the decision you make in the next few weeks matters. So let me give you the specific answer, not the general one, the specific one, because the right answer is different depending on where you are starting from. If you're on an iPhone 15 Pro or older, buy the 18 Pro, full stop. The display alone is a generation ahead of what you have. The chip closes every AI feature gap you have been living with. The camera, especially the telephoto, is a meaningful upgrade that you will feel in your daily life. The carried over issue exists, but for a user coming from 2 or 3 generations back, the net improvement is so significant that it is not the deciding factor. this is your upgrade year. If you are on an iPhone 16 Pro, wait, the display is better, but not transformatively better. The chip is faster, but the 16 Pro is not slow. The camera is improved, but you are not living with a frustrating camera right now, and you would be paying full price for a phone that carries a known issue. The math does not work in your favor this year. If you are on an iPhone 17 Pro, this is the conversation I want you to sit with. Because here's the uncomfortable part. You already have the issue, the one that Apple carried forward. It is on your current phone, and the 18 Pro has a version of the same issue. So upgrading does not solve the thing that might already be bothering you. It just puts it in a newer box. If that issue has been affecting your daily experience with the 17 Pro, then 2026 might actually be the year to look left, to look at what Samsung and Google are doing with their flagship hardware. Because in a year where Apple's best move was to carry the problem forward instead of fixing it, the competition did not stand still. I know that is not the recommendation most people watching this expected to hear, but it is the honest one, and honest is the only thing worth being when someone is about to spend $1,200. So here is where we land. iPhone 18 Pro, the best display Apple has ever put in a phone. A chip that makes the software Apple has been promising for 2 years finally feel finished. A telephoto camera that might be the best on any device at any price, and a design issue documented, confirmed, carried forward that Apple chose to manage instead of fix. That last part does not make this a bad phone. It makes it a phone with a condition, and conditions matter when you are committing to something for 3 years. So, iPhone 15 Pro and older, and this is your move, iPhone 16 Pro, hold. iPhone 17 Pro, think harder than you usually would. And if that thinking leads you somewhere unexpected, bull, that is not a failure of loyalty to Apple. That is just good decision making. Here's what I keep coming back to at the end of all of this. Apple builds hardware that is genuinely difficult to argue with. The engineering is real, the attention to materials is real, the display, the chip, the camera system, all of it is real. But there is a difference between great hardware and great hardware with a known issue the company chose not to fix before charging you $1,200 for it. You deserve to know that difference before September. Now you do. I am genuinely curious where you land on this. Were you already decided on the 18 Pro before this video? Did anything here change the calculation? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and I am testing something next week that might shift how we think about this entire category. Not a phone. Something adjacent, something that might make the question of which phone you buy feel slightly less important than we all currently think it is. Stay close.